Bing bongy bong, bing bongy bong. This is Joe, the bearded historian. He'll tell you an interesting story. Be careful of his soldiers, they can be brats. This is Angel, she's an entity. She'll cause chaos and plant her hands at you. This is Sue, she likes spirits, not the alcohol. She's the reason this channel exists. This is David, he likes fire trucks. He's here occasionally. Bing bongy bong, bing bongy bong, bing bongy bong. We preserve his story. Welcome to Wednesday. This video is going to be football related, history related. So I apologize if you're not into sports ball. Maybe you'll at least enjoy the history bits of the video. Remember, I only make the suggestions. I don't choose the topic. That is for the bearded historian to choose. Speaking of which, his birthday's coming up this weekend, Sunday. We're going to be very, very busy this weekend. But I hope to have a short up for him this weekend. I just got to figure out how to do it. Any suggestions on a short? I'd appreciate it. But before all that, we have to do a race. I've chosen a regular people race because we have regular people involved. That makes sense? Anyway, here we go. Shout out time. Here's a shout out just for you. You support me, I support you. This shout out is for our friends. Let's see who it is today. So we got mixed sex races. Start. Or reload. Okay, let's try this again. Okay, there we go. There's Melinda, there's Dave, there's Northern Woman, there's Bobby, there's A Space, Big Ben, there's Heat Tripping, let's see, there's Brad, Resin, Steph, Kate Eats, We Go, Railroad, Lower, Duo, Hillbilly, Trip, Brit Girls, M&J, Thorkin, Consume, Reverend, Mindfork, Frugal, New, Stony, Principal, A&M. Who's it gonna be? It's gonna be close. Is it gonna be Stony? No, I think it might be Miss Stace. It is Miss Stace. Alright, so this is Miss Stace, and as you can see, she does a lot of paper stuff here. It says, welcome, I'm a paper crafter and card maker that appreciates all crafty styles. I love learning fun and exciting techniques to spice up my products. And she does have some fun stuff. I am not a crafter. I'm not creative. But some of the things she has are fun. She gets fun stickers, fun little other doohickeys, which names I cannot remember right now. Stickers and all that kind of stuff. There's hauls. So if you're into paper crafting, card making, check her out. Like, share, comment, and enjoy the video. Oh. Alright, Mr. Bud, I have found at least the beginning of what I need. Give me a good start. What are you going to tell them? Is it going to be anything interesting?
It'd probably be very boring. So.
Alright, I'm going to take a nap now.
Yep, everybody take a nap, and when you get done, just click like and subscribe and hang up. Anyway, as tradition, the wifey usually finds me a list of interesting and odds and ends to take and do the Wayback Wednesday on. And this week was kind of a treat. Had a name pop up, and it kind of circles around a couple fun things that I had happen when I was younger in life. when I started collecting sports cards. One of the two things I always got kind of a kick out of was both the stats of certain players, but also the longevity. I mean, if you got a card and their entire back of their card was covered in stats, that guy played a long time. And I remember in I think it was 86 or 87, the Topps issue, Jim Plunkett's covered almost his entire stat shield. It was crazy. There's a couple other guys that were like that, and so I started talking to my dad a little bit about football, and that's when he also told me about a guy who, in his time in playing in the NFL, set the record for the most seasons ever played. And interestingly enough, when he started playing in the NFL, my dad was 3 years old. And when he retired, I was 3 years old.
Ooh.
So that's a long time for any one guy to be playing a game as violent and physical as football. Well, the guy that we're talking about is a guy by the name of George Blanda. Now, Blanda, born September 17th, 1927 in Youngwood, Pennsylvania. He would go to Kentucky in college. Interestingly enough, he started his college term with Coach Paul Bear Bryant, who would later go on to fame and setting countless records at Alabama. He wound up in his sophomore year, following a 1-9 season. The Wildcats would only lose 3 games in each of his next 3 years. Well, Blanda would be the starting quarterback in 1947 and 48, managing 12 touchdowns, 120 completions, and 242 passes. He would wind up getting selected to go to the pros, draft pick in the 12th round out of 119 players. So he wasn't right up there at the top of the list, but he was going to be a useful quarterback for whoever picked him up. Well, the team that wound up picking him would be the Chicago Bears. And interestingly enough, he was signed by the Bears for $600 in 1949. Interestingly enough, the owner, George Halas, demanded back when he made the team.
Whoop.
Blanda was given a lucrative contract of $6,000 back then.
Woo.
As the 600 was just a sign-on bonus. Well, he was primarily used as a quarterback and a place kicker. Also saw his time on the defensive side as a linebacker. And it wasn't until '53 that Blanda would emerge as a Bears top quarterback. Sadly, an injury the following year effectively ended his status as a first-string quarterback. However, next 4 years he was primarily used in kicking. Later, commenting on his testy relationship with Halas, Blanda would note, "He was way too cheap to even buy me a kicking shoe." Blanda later reflected that by the 1950s, the pro game had moved beyond Halas, who seemed to lack the interest he had earlier. Kind of understandable. I mean, Papa Bear was in football for decades. Well, in '58, Blanda had retired primarily because Halas insisted on only using him as a kicker. But in 1960, a new league showed up on the doorstep of America, the American Football League. And with a whole new league, I mean, you had all sorts of new teams, you had new opportunities for players to go try to play, and so for a lot of people, it was a chance to get back into the pros. Well, Blanda would take a chance and sign up with the Houston Oilers, both as a quarterback and a kicker. Now, like a lot of the players that went to the AFL, they were kind of considered the NFL rejects. How dare you? Do you even play football? Yeah. Well, interestingly enough, he would lead the Oilers to the first 2 league titles in their history, and was an All-AFL quarterback and won the Player of the Year honors in 1961. During that season, he would lead the AFL in passing yards with 3,330 and touchdown passes of 36. In fact, his 36 touchdown passes in '61 were the most ever thrown by a quarterback in a single season, until it was matched by Y.A. Tittle of the Giants 2 years later in 1963. Interestingly enough, both those marks would remain on the record books until Dan Marino's 48 touchdown passes in 1984. Well, in the 1961 title game, he would actually throw 5 interceptions, becoming the 4th quarterback in football history to do so in a playoff game. However, this is kind of interesting. The Oilers would win the game still, 10-3, which meant the Oilers' defense was just brick wall. They held the San Diego Chargers to a single field goal, no points until late in the 4th quarter. Blanda, interestingly enough, would score all of the points in the game because he got a field goal and threw the touchdown to Billy Cannon in the win. Well, of all the players to throw 5 interceptions or more in a playoff game, Blanda's the only one that never lost the game. Now, in 62, he had 2 400-yard passing days for the Oilers. He threw for 464 yards against the Bills on October 29th, with 4 touchdown passes, winning 28-16, and then 418 yards 3 weeks later against the Titans of New York, and this time with 7 touchdown passes in a 49-13 victory. Blanda passed for 36 touchdowns that season. Blanda also threw 42 interceptions that year, a record that still stands as the only quarterback to throw 40 interceptions in a season. In the 62 title game that went to double overtime, he would kick a field goal and throw a touchdown pass that had his 5th interception occur late that eventually set up the game-ending field goal. On 13 occasions, he connected on 4 more touchdown passes during a game, and on November the 1st, 1964, would throw 68 passes for Houston against the eventual champion Buffalo Bills. Well, from 63 to 65, Blanda would lead the AFL in passing attempts and completions, ranked in the top 10 for attempts, completions, yards, and touchdowns during 7 consecutive seasons. In 66, he would see Blanda's Oilers begin the season, interestingly enough, with a 3-5 record, despite having a statistically prolific connection with receiver Charlie Frazier. Blanda would cede playing time at quarterback to the 25-year-old Don Truel, though Blanda continued to serve as the team's primary kicker. A 4-time All-Star, Blanda's already long career seemed over when he was released by the Oilers on March 18, 1967. However, the Oakland Raiders would pick him up in July, seeing a potential both as a contributing backup passer and a dependable kicker. Makes sense. I mean, the guy's already proven to come back from the dead once. Why not twice? Well, later years, interestingly enough, Blanda remained a strong supporter of the AFL heritage, saying that first year the Houston Oilers or the Los Angeles Chargers, who they beat in the title game, could have beaten the champion Philadelphia in the Super Bowl. Blanda said further, "I think the AFL was capable of beating the NFL in a Super Bowl game as far back as 1960 or 61. I just regret we didn't get a chance to prove it. I think it would have been fun." Now, in 67, Blanda's first season with the Raiders, his kicking skills helped him lead the AFL in scoring with 116 points. In 2 instances, his leg helped play a role in Raider victories. A trio of field goals helped the team upset the defending league champion Kansas City Chiefs on October the 1st. And in the closing weeks of the regular season, he would kick 4 field goals behind a hostile Houston crowd in a 19-7 victory over his former team, the Oilers, getting a measure of revenge. 3 weeks later, they would beat the Oilers again, this time in the AFL championship game, and would win 40-7. That was an ugly game. Sadly, the Raiders would go on to Super Bowl II, where they would be defeated by the Green Bay Packers. In 1970, interestingly enough, Blanda was released by the team in exhibition, but would bounce back to establish his 21st professional season. During the year, Blanda, at age 43. How many of you are out there playing football at 43? Not a lot. I'm sorry.
I played last Tuesday.
I'm out here on crutches. I can still run. I'm going to shuffle very fast. At 43, he had a remarkable 5-game run. This was crazy. Against the Steelers, Blanda would throw for 3 touchdowns in relief of an injured Darryl LaMonica. 1 week later, his 48-yard field goal with 3 seconds remaining would salvage a 17-17 tie with the Kansas City Chiefs. On November the 8th, he again came off the bench to throw a touchdown pass to tie the Cleveland Browns with 1:34 remaining, then would kick a 53-yard field goal with 3 seconds left to win the game. Immediately after the winning of the field goal, Raiders radio announcer Bill King excitedly declared, "George Blanda has just been elected King of the World." In the team's next game, Blanda would replace LaMonica in the fourth quarter, connecting with Fred Biletnikoff on a touchdown pass with 2:28 left in the game to defeat the Denver Broncos 24-19. And then the following week, Blanda's 16-yard field goal in the closing seconds would defeat the San Diego Chargers 20-17. If you got a guy that old that's throwing that well, shoot, make him a starter and get it over with. But, it worked. 1970, great year. Interestingly enough, in the AFC title game that year against the Baltimore Colts, Blanda again would relieve the injured LaMonica, completing 17 of 32 passes for 217 yards and 2 touchdowns, while also kicking a 48-yard field goal and 2 extra points, keeping the Raiders in the game until the final quarter when he was picked off twice. And at 43, he became the oldest quarterback ever to play in a championship game, and was one of the few remaining straight-ahead kickers in the NFL. Blanda's achievements resulted in him winning the Burt Bell Award. Chiefs owner Lamar Hunt said, "Why, this George Blanda is as good as his father who used to play in Houston." Dude, that's the same Blanda. Although he never again played a major role at quarterback, Blanda served as the Raiders kicker for 5 more seasons. Blanda would also be named as the Associated Press Male Athlete of the Year, being the first ever professional football player to earn the award. He also finished second in the Associated Press MVP voting to John Brody. Now, he would play his last game in Pittsburgh's Three Rivers Stadium on January 4th, 1976, at age 48. In the 1975 AFC Championship game, he kicked a 41-yard field goal and made 1 extra point as the Raiders lost to the Steelers 16-10. Blanda was released during training camp in late 1976 and was succeeded by kicker rookie Fred Steinfort. Interestingly enough, Steinfort would get hurt mid-season and was replaced by a 35-year-old veteran, Errol Mann. Also interesting enough, in 76, that was the year the Raiders would go on to win their first title in Super Bowl 11. Now, for career stats, like they were mentioning, he started out, primarily as a quarterback for the Bears. Interestingly enough, and I was trying to hunt up some stats on it, in 1950, he also played a single game with the Baltimore Colts. Didn't pass, didn't play, but he apparently counted as one credit as a game played. He went back to Chicago the very following year, or the same year, I should say, because he had 11 games in Chicago, 1 game in Baltimore. When he was with the Bears, they had a record with him being the starter. He had a total of 8 wins against 12 losses and 1 tie. He had 169 completions out of 362 attempts in 1953. But yeah, by the time 1958 come along, Chicago was done with him being the quarterback. In Houston, though, he kind of redefined, going out there and just letting it fly. In 1962, they went out and had an 11-3 record. He had 42 interceptions there, 27 touchdowns. But it seemed like when he would shine, get him into the playoffs. Although it was funny that twice in 2 years he had 5 interceptions, which meant either the other team was really good at picking him off, or they could read him really well. But he was still
either bad.
Yeah. But he was getting 36, 24, 27, 24, 17, 20, 17 touchdowns per season. So getting decent numbers out of it. But I still think it's also funny that here he was in 1967. Everybody's like, Gramps, did you get lost in the hallway? Where were you
Yes.
going? You know, what are you doing? And then he came out and he was throwing touchdowns. And you have to remember the Raiders back then also had a major problem with backups. Don't get me wrong, Darryl LaMonica was an excellent quarterback. The problem is the guy just couldn't stay healthy. And, you know, the Mad Bomber, he was good at airing it out when he needed to, but eventually, you know, they needed to get some stability. Of course, about that time, came a guy from, well, Alabama, some guy named Ken Stabler, but beside the point. But, you know, the postseason, you know, the Raiders would wind up going to multiple games in the 70s. From 67 through 75, the Raiders played in at least 2 games every postseason, except for 72. They only played in 1. With Houston, again, 1960, 61, and 62, they played in the playoffs all 3 years. The nice thing about back then also was that the playoffs weren't this grandiose tree with 6 teams playing. It was the number 1 team here and the number 1 team here. You guys fight. Whoever wins the title. Pretty simple playoffs back then. Now, for the fun of records, okay, Blanda would finish 26 professional football seasons, having 1,911 completions out of 4,007 pass attempts, 26,920 yards, 236 touchdowns. In today's numbers, that's pretty pedestrian. But then again, this was back when football was a lot harder, a lot rougher. A lot of times, football players didn't make it to 35 years old. They would get, you know, spiked on their heads. You know, there was a picture of Y.A. Tittle just, you know, looking absolutely wrecked on the sidelines. You know, back then it was surprising anybody made it to 40, let alone, you know, 48. He actually rushed for 344 yards, 9 touchdowns on the ground, and he would kick 335 field goals. He had 943 extra points, giving him a total of 2,002 total points in his career. Additional stats would include 1 interception, 2 kickoff returns for 19 yards, 22 punts for 809 yards, and he would recover 23 fumble recoveries. Interestingly enough, he still holds the professional football records of most seasons played at 26, most seasons scoring a point at 26, one of only 2 players to play in 4 different decades. He played in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, and John Carney, who played in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s. Oldest player to play in an NFL game, 48 years, 109 days. Most interceptions thrown in a single season, 42. Passing touchdowns in a single game, 7. It is actually tied with 7 others.
Wow.
Yeah, talk about your lockups. Most paths made and attempted of 943 and 959 attempted. He is the place kicker on the all-time All-AFL team as one of only 20 players to play all 10 years of the AFL, as well as only 3 who were in every AFL game in their teams played. Blanda was elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 1981, first year of eligibility, and is also inducted into the University of Kentucky Hall of Fame. Blanda held the record for most professional football games played with 340 until it was broken, interestingly enough, by another kicker. In 2004, Morton Anderson as well for the record with most consecutive games until September 26, 1976 by defensive end Jim Marshall. He still holds the record for most games played by an AFL-NFL player who is not exclusively a kicker or punter. His 114 postseason points were an NFL record at the time of his retirement. Blanda would break Lou Groza's career scoring record in 1971, a record held until 2000 when it was broken by Gary Anderson, and Blanda's 2002 total points are still good for 7th all-time on the scoring list. Interestingly enough, Route 119 in Blanda's hometown of Youngsville, Pennsylvania, was renamed George Blanda Boulevard.
Yep.
In 1999, he was ranked number 98 on Sporting News' greatest 100 football players. And Blanda was the first ever recorded fantasy football draft pick when the game was first created in 1962 by the Greater Oakland Professional Pigskin Procrastinators League.
Is it Procrastinators League? Let's join.
Prognosticators.
Procrastinators?
Yeah.
I don't know what that
means. A bunch of guys that got to sit around and play the numbers. Now, personal life, he was the son of a Slovak-born Pittsburgh area coal miner. He was married to Betty Harris from December 17th, 1949 until his death on September 27th, 2010, 10 days after his 83rd birthday. They had 2 children. According to Pro Football Hall of Fame, Blanda died after a short illness. He was 83 years old, and a moment of silence was held in Blanda's honor prior to the start of the September 27th, 2010 game between the Packers and the Chicago Bears on Monday Night Football from Soldier Field. The 1970s TV series Happy Days was set in the 1950s, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and in Season 3, episode Football Frolics first aired in 1976. Richie Cunningham, played by Ron Howard, and Ralph Malph, Donnie Most, are watching the December 9th, 1956 Chicago Bears, Chicago Cardinals televised game.
Oh, fun.
After Ed Brown's pass to Harlan Hill was intercepted by the Cardinals, Richie wants the other quarterback put in. Ralph said that the other quarterback is washed up. He's old. He's 30. He's got no future. Richie argues back, Georgia Blanda has 2 or 3 good years left. The joke that was on Blanda, 19 years after that date depicted on the show, was still playing.
Just a couple years left.
Just a few years left. Don't worry about that. Now, towards the end of his career, Blanda also served as a commercial spokesman for the Chrysler Corporation. He is often seen in television commercials promoting his full-size Dodge truck line, most notably the new Club Cab, after the line received a complete redesign in '73. Blanda would also appear in commercials for Schaefer Beer, Brute Cologne, Kellogg Cereals, and many others during the early 1970s. Well, he'd also be named to the Bay Area Sports Hall of Fame for Let's Raider fan.
No.
But yeah, it's the one thing I do remember, and I've still got the issue over here of Blanda being in Sports Illustrated, and one of the funniest things about it is that he was telling me that wives would come up and say, thanks to you, I get my husband off the couch. They're like, I'm 46, I can't go mow the lawn. And he says, well, George Blanda's out there running back and forth and kicking the football. You get your butt out there.
Hey,
Blanda was one of the kind.
You heard him, Bibbs. Just because you're slightly older than he is doesn't mean that you can get off your butt and go do something. Can't mow the lawn because we don't have a lawn. But
I was going to say no lawn here, but we still get out every Sunday and every other Saturday, or somebody takes the day off, and
we have so many things on the calendar.
Yeah.
There are like, 2 Saturdays that don't have anything listed on it?
Yeah, but like, for example, this weekend there's 3 on one day and 2 on the other, and we still have to drop one because the girl works.
There's if you want to look at it, the total of things that we did not put on the calendars, there's like 6.
Yeah.
On Saturday and like 5 on Sunday, but we've narrowed it down to 2 that we're doing.
Yeah.
On each, one on each day, because priorities.
Yeah. So in honor of Wayback, we're getting out. But this is the Bearded Historian, and it's still growing longer. Have fun, folks. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye. 24 minutes.